I was 31, childless, and still waiting for the life my husband had promised me at 24. That's when I started an experiment. I stopped reminding him of his promises and just watched. What I discovered was chilling, and it's the reason I filed for divorce 60 days later. It started the way it always does, with a vision so beautiful it felt like destiny. Marcus and I met at a networking event when I was 24. I had just started my marketing career at a small agency downtown, and I remember telling him about my dream of running my own firm someday, maybe specializing in brand strategy for nonprofits. He leaned in close, his eyes locked on mine, and said, "I can see that for you. I can see us building that together. I have connections. I can help you make it happen." 3 weeks later, he was talking about marriage. I thought it was romantic. I thought he was just that certain about us. Looking back, I can see it clearly. He was listening to everything I wanted, every dream I had ever whispered out loud. And then he was handing those dreams back to me, wrapped in promises. He made himself the only path to everything I had ever wanted. Within 6 months, we were engaged. Within a year, I got married in a small ceremony at my parents' house because he said we should save money for the down payment on our future home. And the promises kept coming like clockwork. We will buy a house in the suburbs with a big yard, maybe in Westchester. We will start a family in 2 years, once we are more established. I will help you launch your business once I get that promotion to senior account manager. We will travel the world together once things settle down. Maybe start with Italy, like you've always wanted. Every promise was enormous. Every promise was just far enough away that I could not touch it. And every promise required me to keep waiting, keep sacrificing, keep believing that the real relationship, the one he kept describing in such vivid detail, was just around the corner. Year 2, I wanted to start trying for a baby. I was 26, and my younger sister had just announced her pregnancy. I felt this urgency, this deep knowing that I was ready. Marcus said, "Let's wait until I get that senior account manager role. I want to be financially stable first. You deserve the best, and I want to give that to you. We need at least another $50,000 in savings before we can responsibly bring a child into this world." It sounded responsible. It sounded like he was thinking about our future, about giving our child the life they deserved. So I waited. Year 3, he got the promotion. I brought up the baby conversation again, excited because the obstacle he had named was now gone. This time he said, "Let's wait until we buy the house. I don't want to raise a kid in this apartment. You deserve a backyard, a nursery, the whole thing. Our child deserves to grow up in a real home, not some cramped 2-bedroom rental." Again, it sounded thoughtful, like he was planning carefully, like he wanted everything to be perfect. So I waited. Year 4, we toured houses every Sunday for 3 months. I fell in love with a colonial-style home with a wraparound porch on Maple Street. It had 4 bedrooms, a finished basement, and a yard big enough for a swing set. I could see our life there. I started imagining which room would be the nursery, where we would put the Christmas tree, how we would host family dinners on that porch in the summer. Marcus said, "Let's not rush into anything. The market is unpredictable. We should save more first. I want to make sure we are really ready. What if interest rates drop next year? We would be kicking ourselves if we bought now." By then, I had started to notice something, a pattern I could not quite name yet. The future he described was always vivid, always detailed, always just out of reach. But the present was completely empty. He would promise to be home for dinner at 7, then show up at 10:30 with no explanation and smelling like bourbon. He would say he would help me prep for a client pitch, then spend the entire weekend playing Call of Duty with his headset on, ignoring me completely. He would commit to couples therapy, then cancel the appointment the morning of, claiming a work emergency that I later found out never happened when I ran into his coworker at the grocery store. Small promises, daily promises, promises that required almost no effort. And he broke every single one. But whenever I confronted him, whenever I said, "You told me you would be here, and you were not," he would pivot immediately to the big glittering future. I know. I have been overwhelmed. But once we get the house, things will be different. Once we are settled, I will have more bandwidth. I promise. You know I want this just as much as you do. And I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because I had already invested so much, because the future he painted was the future I had dreamed of since I was a little girl. And he had woven himself so tightly into that dream that I could not imagine it without him. Year 7, I hit a breaking point. I was 31. My friends were having babies. My sister was pregnant with her second child. My career had stalled because I kept turning down opportunities that required relocation or long hours. A company in Boston had offered me a director position with a significant raise, but I turned it down. I wanted to be available for the family we were supposedly going to start any day now. I sat Marcus down one evening in October and said, "We need to set a date. For trying for a baby, I need something concrete. I need to know this is actually going to happen." He looked at me like I had just asked him to solve an impossible equation. Then his face shifted, softened. He reached for my hand across the table. "You are right," he said. "I have been putting this off, and that is not fair to you. Let's do it. Let's start trying next year, after my bonus comes through in March. I want to make sure we are in the best possible position. You deserve security. Our child deserves security. Next year, always next year." I felt something crack inside me. Not anger, not yet, just exhaustion. A deep, bone-level fatigue that came from realizing I had heard this exact script a dozen times before, in a dozen different contexts, and nothing had ever changed. But I did not leave, not yet, because leaving meant admitting I had wasted 7 years. Leaving meant starting over at 31, single, without the family I had planned for. Leaving meant facing the fact that the man I married had never intended to give me the life he promised. So I stayed. And I kept waiting. Year 9, something inside me shifted. I stopped talking about the future, not because I had given up hope, but because I started paying attention to something Marcus had said during one of our arguments. He had accused me of being pushy when I asked him to actually look at houses with me, to set up appointments with a realtor, to take one concrete step toward the future he had been describing for nearly a decade. "Why are you always trying to control everything?" he snapped. "Can't you just trust the process? You are suffocating me with all this pressure. Trust the process." That phrase stuck with me because there was no process. There was only a series of delays, excuses, and emotional deflections designed to keep me focused on a tomorrow that would never come. So I started an experiment. I stopped bringing up the house, stopped bringing up the baby, stopped asking him to follow through on anything he had promised, and I started watching. What I saw was chilling. Without me pushing, without me reminding him of his own promises, Marcus never mentioned the future, not once. The grand plans, the detailed visions, the heartfelt commitments, they only surfaced when I was upset, when I was questioning the relationship, when I was close to walking away. The future was not a plan. It was a sedative. He would dose me with it whenever I started waking up to the reality of the present, that I was lonely, unsupported, and living with someone who contributed nothing to my actual well-being. I tested it further. I started setting small, reasonable boundaries. I asked him to text me if he was going to be late. I asked him to do his own laundry instead of leaving it in piles on the bedroom floor. I asked him to pick up groceries on his way home, just milk and bread, nothing complicated. Simple, concrete, present tense requests. He failed every single one. But the excuses were always elaborate, always sympathetic sounding, always followed by a promise that things would be better soon. My phone was on 1%. I forgot. But I will do better, I swear. I have been so stressed at work. Can you just handle it this week? Once this project is done, I will be more present. They were out of the brand you like. I kaukori and traigiri. I did not want to get the wrong thing, but next time, I promise. And that was when I understood the full scope of what he had been doing. Marcus had no intention of building a future with me. He had every intention of keeping me hoping for one, because hope was cheaper than effort. Hope kept me compliant. Hope kept me from demanding more in the here and now. Hope was his weapon. Year 10, I made a decision. I stopped evaluating my marriage based on what it could be and started evaluating it based on what it was. And what was it? Empty, transactional. A one-sided arrangement where I provided emotional labor, financial contribution, and unwavering support, while Marcus provided promises, just promises. I did not confront him. I did not give him a chance to talk his way out of it again. I just started planning my exit quietly, strategically, with the same attention to detail I had once given to imagining our fantasy life together. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank where he would never see the statements. I found an apartment in a neighborhood he never went to. I consulted a lawyer on a Wednesday afternoon, telling Marcus I was meeting a client, and I stopped sharing my inner world with him entirely. This part was crucial. Every time I had told Marcus about a hope, a fear, a dream, he had filed it away and used it later to manipulate me. The baby I wanted, that became leverage. The business I wanted to start, leverage. The financial security I craved, leverage. So I became bored, unreactive. I turned myself into the most uninteresting, emotionally flat version of myself whenever he was around. When he asked how my day was, I said fine. When he tried to start a fight, I said okay and walked away. When he lobbed out another future promise, we should really start looking at houses again. I heard the Johnsons just bought in that neighborhood you liked. I said sure, and changed the subject to something mundane, like what we needed from the hardware store. I gave him nothing to work with. And here is what happened. He panicked. Narcissists are not invested in you. They are invested in what you provide. Attention, validation, emotional reaction. When I stopped giving him that, when I stopped fighting for the future he had dangled in front of me for a decade, he sensed he was losing control. The promises intensified. Let's set a date. Let's start trying for a baby this month. Let's put an offer on a house this weekend. I already called that realtor. I am serious this time. Suddenly, everything I had begged for was on the table. Suddenly, he was ready, but I was not, because I had finally seen the pattern. The urgency was not about wanting to build a life with me. It was about sensing that I was slipping away. The promises were not commitments. They were last-ditch efforts to keep me on the hook. And I knew with absolute certainty that if I stayed, if I let myself believe one more time, the cycle would just repeat. We would set a date and he would delay. We would tour a house and he would find a reason to back out. we would start trying for a baby, and he would sabotage it with convenient excuses about stress or timing, because the future was never the point. The control was. I filed for divorce on a Tuesday in November. Marcus was blindsided. He cried. He begged. He promised. Of course he promised that he would change, that he would go to therapy, that he would prove to me he was serious this time. Just give me 6 months, he said, tears streaming down his face. 6 months and I will show you I can be the man you need. I will prove it to you. Please. 6 months. The same time frame he had been asking for since year 2. I looked at him and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. I have already given you 10 years, I said. I am done waiting. And I walked out. Here is what I need you to understand. Leaving was not the hard part. Staying was the hard part. Every single day I stayed, I betrayed myself, Gil, little more. I ignored my gut, rationalized his behavior, and convinced myself that if I just waited a little longer, the future he promised would finally arrive. But the future he described was never meant to arrive. It was a carrot on a stick, designed to keep me moving forward in a relationship that was going nowhere. And the moment I stopped chasing it, I was free. So how do you escape this trap if you are living in it right now? Stop judging your relationship on its potential. Stop evaluating it based on what he says it will become. Look only at what it is right now, at this moment. Is he kind to you today? Does he respect your boundaries today? Does he support your goals today? If the answer is no, then the future he is selling you is irrelevant. Because people who genuinely want to build a future with you invest in the present. They show up. They follow through. They treat you well now, not someday. Separate your dreams from him. Take ownership of your goals. If you want to start a business, start researching it on your own. If you want a family, consider your options independently. If you want financial security, build it yourself. Stop waiting for him to give you permission, resources, or partnership. The longer you tie your aspirations to him, the more power he has to dangle them just out of reach. Accept that he will not change. You do not have to leave today if you are not ready, but you have to stop believing that the person he will become someday is different from the person he is right now, because he will not change. And the longer you wait for a transformation that will never happen, the more of your life you lose. This acceptance does not mean you must leave immediately. It means you stop letting hope blind you to reality. Stop feeding him information. Every time you share a vulnerability, a hope, a frustration, you are giving him ammunition. Be boring. Be uninteresting. Talk about surface-level topics, weather, traffic, work logistics. Do not share your dreams, your fears, your pain. Keep your inner world locked away from him. This is not forever. This is strategy. This is protection while you plan your next move. Check the track record. Before you believe any major promise, look at his history with small promises. Did he text you when he said he would? Did he show up on time? Did he follow through on basic, low-effort commitments? If he cannot keep a simple promise, he will not keep a life-altering one. The scale does not matter. The pattern does. Here is the truth nobody tells you about narcissistic relationships. They do not end because the narcissist finally sees the light and changes. They end because you stop believing the story. For 10 years, I believed Marcus's story. I believed in the house we would buy, the family we would start, the life we would build. I believed so deeply that I ignored every red flag, every broken promise, every moment of neglect. I thought the problem was me. I thought if I just waited longer, loved harder, Asked more nicely, he would finally deliver. But the problem was never me. The problem was that I was trying to build a future with someone who only ever existed in the present moment, and barely even then. Marcus did not want a partner. He wanted an audience, someone to admire his potential, believe in his false self, and wait patiently while he did nothing to earn it. And the moment I stopped playing that role, the relationship dissolved. It has been 3 years since I left. I am 33 now. I do not have a house with a wraparound porch. I do not have the kids I once imagined. But I have something I did not have in that marriage: agency. I make decisions based on what I want, not what someone else has promised me. I set goals and chase them without waiting for permission or partnership. I trust my gut when something feels off, instead of talking myself out of it. And I have learned to spot this pattern a mile away. When someone makes grand promises early on, I watch their follow-through on the small stuff. When someone describes a beautiful tomorrow, I check whether they are showing up today. When someone asks me to wait, I ask myself, what am I waiting for, and who benefits from the delay? Most importantly, I have reclaimed my dreams. They are mine again, not tied to anyone else's timeline, approval, or participation. That is the fastest way out. Not confrontation, not evidence, not waiting for them to admit what they have done. Just this: stop living in the future they have sold you, and start living in the present you actually have. Because the present will tell you everything you need to know. And once you are willing to see it clearly, the decision makes itself. If you are reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are not asking for too much. You are not imagining the pattern. You are seeing it clearly, maybe for the first time. And that clarity is the beginning of your freedom. The future he is promising, it is not real. It never was. But the future you can build for yourself without him, that is real. That is waiting. And it starts the moment you stop waiting for him. Trust me, I know how hard it is to let go of the dream. But I also know what is on the other side. Your life, fully yours, is no longer on hold. And it is worth it. Look, I am not going to sugarcoat this for you. The hardest part is not leaving. It is the moment you realize you have to stop hoping, because hope feels like love, and letting go of hope feels like giving up on the person you thought they were. But here is what I learned. That person you thought they were, they never existed. You were in love with a performance, a carefully constructed illusion designed to keep you invested while they gave you nothing in return. And once you see that, once you really see it, you cannot unsee it. So if you are sitting there right now, reading this, feeling that sick recognition in your gut, that tight feeling in your chest that tells you this story is your story, do me a favor. Stop waiting. Stop making excuses. Stop believing that next month, next year, after this project, after that promotion, things will magically change. They will not, but you can. You can start making decisions based on what is happening right now, not what might happen someday. You can start building the life you want without waiting for someone else to give you permission. You can start trusting yourself again, listening to that voice inside that has been trying to tell you the truth for months, maybe years, because you already know the truth. You have known it for a while. You have just been afraid to admit it. I get it. I was terrified, too. But on the other side of that fear is a version of your life where you are not constantly waiting, hoping, begging for crumbs of affection and follow through. On the other side is freedom. On the other side is a life where your dreams are yours again, where you do not need anyone's permission to pursue them, where you wake up and make choices based on what you want, not what someone else has dangled in front of you. And you deserve that. So do me one more favor. If this resonated with you, if you saw yourself in my story, if you felt that recognition somewhere deep in your chest, hit that like button. Subscribe so you do not miss the next video, because I am going to keep breaking down these patterns, keep showing you the tactics they use, and keep reminding you that you are not alone in this. And if you need to hear it one more time, here it is. You are not crazy. You are not asking for too much, and you are not stuck. You are just one decision away from the rest of your life. Make it count.